My elder sister fell in love with a stage performer. To elope with him, she set fire to our home and faked her death. Staring at the charred corpse before us, flesh and blood barely recognizable, my childhood sweetheart, Lu Minghu, said coldly. She was born to a short fate. Yet the hand hidden in his sleeve tightened until it turned white. Later, I devoted everything, schemes, effort, loyalty, to help him rise to the position of Grand Tutor. And in return, he branded me a traitor and burned me alive. It turned out he had always believed that the fire years ago was my doing. He said, Song Wangshu, do you know how miserably Lianer died? When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the moment my elder sister lit that fire. If Lu Minghu wanted to play the role of a devoted lover, then let him. The flames licked at my skin, burning down to my bones. My husband, the man who had shared my bed for years, stood there, watching with indifference. I had cleared every obstacle for him, paving his way step by step to glory. Yet in the end, he wanted me to die without a body to bury. Through the searing pain, I forced out one question. Why? Before the fire consumed me whole, his voice drifted through the crackling flames. Song Wangshu, do you know how miserably Lianer died? Song Lianer. Her fragile, willow-like figure flashed before my eyes. So this was it, he had never once trusted me. Even after I explained countless times that Song Lianer had run away willingly with the stage performer. He still clung to his suspicions that the fire was my doing. After my death, the common people clapped and cheered. They said I was cruel by nature, that my death was well-deserved. For Song Lianer, Lu Minghu built a shrine, incense burning year-round. But for me, he couldn't even bear to erect a tombstone. He merely ordered my body to be wrapped in a ragged mat and tossed into a desolate graveyard. My death was utterly wretched. Even my corpse was torn apart by wild dogs. When I opened my eyes once more, I was back at the moment my elder sister set the fire. Black smoke billowed, flames devoured everything. Escaping from the collapsing room, I was still trembling in fear. At the time, I had been asleep when she acted. Our rooms were separated by only one wall. When she lit the fire, she didn't hesitate. And mine caught ablaze as well. Lu Minghu rushed in, eyes fixed on the burning room, voice trembling with panic. Where's Wai Lian? Why hasn't she come out yet? Barely escaping death, I sat on the ground, powerless. He didn't spare me even a glance, much less a word of concern. Looking back now, the signs had always been there. My father fell to his knees beside me, wailing. Is anyone there? My daughter is still inside. My mother clung to him, sobbing until her voice broke. In my past life, after my elder sister's death, all the blame was laid on me. They said, why was it you who survived? Why wasn't it you who burned to death? They blamed me for not saving my elder sister. But I did try to save her. Even though I hated her to the bone, I still rushed into her courtyard, intending to drag her out. Yet when I arrived, all I saw was a carefully arranged charred corpse. Everyone said I was driven mad by jealousy, that I deliberately set the fire to kill her. No matter how I tried to defend myself, they all chose to believe the rumors without a shred of doubt. At that moment, my mother was sobbing and screaming into my ear. You wretched child! Why didn't you save your sister? My father clenched his jaw, voice low and cold, as if my fate was already sealed. If anything happens to Lianer, you'll be buried with her. In my past life, that injustice was carved deep into my bones. In this life, I will wash it all away, step by step. I raised my voice and said clearly, Song Lianer isn't dead. Even back then, I'd found something off about her supposed death. The bed hadn't even burned through completely, yet the body lying on it was nothing but blackened ash. I exhausted myself investigating and eventually found an old man who swore he had seen Song Lianer slip out through the back gate. Now, I led a group of servants straight there. When we arrived, Song Lianer was packing luggage with the stage performer, ready to flee. The moment she saw us, her face froze in shock. Why, how did everyone know I was here? The evidence was plain for all to see. My mother, trembling with rage, couldn't even breathe, she fainted on the spot. My father's eyes bulged in fury as he barked. Drag that stage performer out and beat him to death. Only then did Song Lianer come to her senses. She dropped to her knees with a heavy thud, tears streaming down like rain. Father, please spare my Gongjin. It was all my idea. It has nothing to do with him. I was the one who wanted to marry him, so I came up with this foolish plan. If you must punish someone, punish me instead. She kowtowed until her forehead bled, her sincerity so convincing that no one could doubt her. Watching the woman he loved cry over another man, even setting fire to her own home to elope, Lu Minghu's face turned ashen. He stood frozen, as if nailed to the ground. What's wrong? Can't bear it anymore. But his path of blind devotion had only just begun. My father, seething with anger, still couldn't bring himself to punish his most beloved daughter. With a cold flick of his sleeve, he ordered Song Lianer to be confined. As for the stage performer, he took 20 blows before being thrown out of the estate like trash. For one act of defiance, I had to endure a lifetime of disgrace. But Song Lianer. She was merely confined, a punishment barely worth mentioning. Ridiculous. Truly ridiculous. Everyone loved Song Lianer, there wasn't a single person who didn't. She was gentle, kind, and merciful, the living embodiment of a saint in their eyes. She would hand leftover meals to beggars on the street. When she saw an injured person, she'd bring them home for treatment. If she met a widower struggling to remarry, she would help him find a new wife. Even though she knew nothing of medicine, she insisted on treating people herself. With needle, thread, and knife in hand. Someone with an injured arm left without a leg. Someone struck by an arrow had their abdomen slit open. None of those saved by her ever walked out alive. It was all heaven's will, they said. There was even a widower who, drunk one night, beat his own wife to death. Song Lianer pitied him deeply, after all, a man who once had companionship was now alone. So she patted her chest and promised. I'll find you a good marriage. And that good marriage was me. She drugged my food and secretly brought that widower into my room in the middle of the night. Fortunately, I was ill that night and hadn't touched the meal, her scheme failed. She sent away my night maid, leaving me completely alone. Cornered, I fought desperately. When the widower let his guard down, I smashed his head with a vase. He was bedridden for life. Song Lianer, in tears, lamented how tragic his fate was. Then turned and scolded me for being cruel and heartless. Rumors spread throughout the capital, calling me, the eldest daughter of the Song family, vicious and unfeeling. A woman who treated human life like grass. No one mentioned that the widower had crept into my room in the middle of the night. The slander only grew worse, buckets of filth poured over my name until my reputation was utterly ruined. It wasn't until much later that I learned who had fanned the flames. Lu Minghu himself. He said, if your name is ruined, how could Lianer ever find a good match? We already have a betrothal. Even if your reputation is in tatters, I'll still marry you. Be good now, don't make trouble. Lianer is simple-minded. She never meant to hurt you. Besides, you're still safe and sound, aren't you? I drew a deep breath, hating myself for ever being so blind. For not seeing the rot beneath Lu Minghu's polished surface. After her failed escape, Song Lianer went on a hunger strike for an entire day in protest. Lu Minghu paced about like an ant on a hot pan, frowning as he shouted. She's starving herself over a mere stage performer. How could she go this far for him? I looked at him calmly and said, Lu Minghu, dissolve our engagement. He froze, stunned into silence. It took him a long time to react. Wangshu, what nonsense are you saying? I brushed aside the hand he raised to touch my forehead and replied coolly. I've never been clearer. If your heart already belongs to my elder sister, then stop wasting your pity on me. Exposed by my words, Lu Minghu's face turned pale, then green, then white again. His voice tightened as he forced out. Wang Shu, I've told you, there's nothing improper between me and Lianer. Must you always be so childish? Nothing improper. Holding hands, embracing, lips pressed together. That was what he called nothing improper. I could feel nothing but disgust. He went on and on beside me, endless words meant to soothe, to reason, to persuade. But when I told him I had a way to make Song Lianer willingly marry him, hesitation flickered in his eyes. Even so, to my surprise, he still refused in the end. No matter. As long as the words came from Song Lianer's own lips, that was enough. She had not eaten or drunk properly for days, her complexion was ashen, her body frail, as though even a passing breeze might topple her. Her tearful eyes glared at me with fury. If it weren't for you, she spat, I would have long since fled with my Gongjin to the ends of the earth. How dare you still show your face to me? The Mai Gongjin she spoke of was none other than Gu Gongjin, the stage performer. Stage performers are all sentimental creatures, Gu Gongjin was no exception. He toyed with many women at once. The so-called token of love he gave Song Lianer, every one of them had one just like it. Even I once received the same scented handkerchief. Only she treated that scrap of cloth like a priceless treasure. I told her I had a way to make her marry Gu Gongjin with her head held high. Her eyes lit up with hope. But I merely smiled and slowly pointed to her belly. Once the rice is cooked, can father and mother still object? Song Lianer flinched, her face draining of color. I bent closer, whispering softly into her ear. Your parents adore you. At most, they'll scold you a little. Gu Gongjin is only a stage performer. If you marry him as the noble daughter of the Tsong family, he'll soar to the heavens overnight. But if you elope with him, he'll remain a wandering minstrel for life. She didn't reply, but I could see the thought taking root behind her eyes. I only wondered, how deeply did Lu Minghu love her? Would his affection extend even to the child growing in her womb? Song Lianer was half asleep in her foolish dream. Naturally, I would offer her the pillow myself. Leaving the Tsong residence, I went straight to the end of South Alley. In my past life, there had been a woman known as the Divine Healer, a miracle physician said to bring the dead back to life, mend broken bones, and concoct medicines that could make women conceive. When I found her in this life, she was crouched in a decrepit temple, hair matted, body thin to the bone, starving and ragged, nothing at all like the celebrated physician she would become a year later. I extended my hand toward her and said calmly, "Would you like to come with me?" Without hesitation, she shook her head. No. My eyes narrowed. Why not? Beneath the tangle of her hair, her gaze was sharp with suspicion. You're from the Tsong household, she said coldly. The moment those words left her mouth, the beggars around her panicked. They clamped their hands over her mouth and bowed low. Forgive her, my lady. She's not right in the head. Please don't be offended. Apologize, girl, quickly. Only then did I look closely at the beggars huddled round her. They pressed together for warmth, trembling in the cold, eyes full of fear as they looked at me. I recognized a few faces. A memory long buried stirred awake. I had seen them once before, outside the gates of the Tsong estate. Back then, Song Lianer had taken in a crippled beggar, vowing to heal him. But when she failed, she threw him out onto the street, his entrails spilling from his abdomen. That beggar was this woman's kin, her mother's son. They had once come to the gates of our estate seeking justice. No one had answered. Several of them were beaten to death by Song Lianer's guards and never returned. The young healer gritted her teeth and spat on the ground. A living bodhisattva. She's nothing but a viper in silk. From then on, I visited the ruined temple daily, bringing clothes and food, even hiring skilled physicians to treat their illnesses. Under my care, the beggars slowly changed. They no longer shrank from me as from a beast, but began to talk, even laugh. I took the young healer's hand, eyes unwavering. We share a common enemy. Let me help you avenge your mother. This time, she didn't push me away. When I returned to the Tsong estate with the young healer beside me, Lu Minghu was already waiting in the courtyard. His lips were pressed thin. His gaze flicked to the girl behind me, then back to my face. I've heard, he said reproachfully, that you've been frequenting that filthy temple in South Alley. You haven't even married yet, such a place isn't fit for you. You should stay away. I smiled faintly. So that's why you came, to lecture me about where I go. He clenched the teacup so tight his knuckles whitened, face awkward and flustered. After a long beat he finally murmured, 3 months confinement, isn't that a bit extreme? Lianer could not bear it any longer. It turned out she had begged him to come plead with me. Only 3 months and she already couldn't stand it. He tried a strange smile. Wang Shu, she is your elder sister. If not for you, she wouldn't have been confined. Could you come with me, plead to your uncle and aunt a little? In the last life, when I didn't stop Song Lianer, he blamed me for deliberately setting the fire. In this life, when I did stop her, he accused me of being cruel. In the end I agreed to go with him to beg my parents to pardon Song Lianer. After all, if she weren't released, how could she cause any scandal with Gu Gongjin? My parents had always doted on her like a fragile egg, how could they refuse a chance to back down? A way to save face was all they needed, and of course they would relent. My mother looked at me with a softness that stung. Wan Shu understands things, unlike Lianer, who always worries your father and me. If you marry Minghu, you'll be a good wife. Lu Minghu flushed, smiled awkwardly, and reached to take my hand. I quietly pulled away. His hand hung in the air, lost, then withdrew in embarrassment. Who would bother marrying Lu Minghu? I sold off many hairpins and pieces of jewelry to buy herbs for the young healer, so she could devote herself to making medicines. I even hired a reputable physician to instruct her. True to her name, the healer improved at a terrifying speed. Finally, she succeeded in concocting the life and death pill for me. She said the pill was a defiance of nature. Once taken, the fetus in the womb would drain the mother's life force. I laughed. I wondered how a frail girl like Song Lianer could possibly endure it. I placed the life and death pill into her palm and smiled coldly. Your happiness with Gu Gongjin is your choice. Her eyes flashed with a strange light as if a final decision had been made. She clenched the pill in her hand. She was about to act. And I should begin as well. At dusk, Song Lianer entered Buhan Xian, the pleasure house where stage performers enacted songs and skits. Naturally, I brought Lu Minghu along. Inside Buhan Xian the crowd was thick as flies, raucous and lively. Lu Minghu hated noise, he only frowned but said nothing. I had feigned indifference toward him for so long, this was the first time I'd arranged to meet him, at a place hardly noble. He sat down beside me, eyes shadowed with something unsaid. Wang Shu, aren't you angry with me anymore? He asked. I smiled thinly. I came to watch the show. He wouldn't relent. Wang Shu, there's truly nothing between Lianer and me. Your husband is only ever you. Don't break our engagement. In my last life, words like that would have moved me to tears, I would have offered my heart to him. But now I felt only nausea. He had always been skilled at hiding things, burying resentments for 10 years, then plunging a dagger into me at the right moment. Since childhood, the elder sister had been weak and kind, so my parents spoiled her, the time they gave me was scarce. Because of that, a single hollow show of concern from Lu Minghu once made me grateful to the point of tears. It was the night snow fell thick. I accidentally spilled my sister's medicinal tonic and was punished to kneel in the snow for half an hour. My legs went numb, I staggered and nearly fell. It was Lu Minghu who steadied me. He took off his cloak and wrapped it around me, then ordered someone to take me back to my chamber. When I learned he was my betrothed, my heart fluttered. I curled beneath that great cloak, naively thinking fate had finally been kind to me, there was someone who would love me. Gu Gongjin had just finished a song, the audience applauded thunderously. He bowed and slipped backstage. But someone was already waiting for him behind the curtain. The song still echoed on stage, while behind the drape two bodies clung to one another endlessly. At first I thought Song Lianer would bring him upstairs, who would expect she would be waiting right in the wings. If she liked putting on a scene, then I would give her one. When the act ended, I sipped my tea with measured calm and said, "Lu Minghu, you really make me sick." Before he could answer, a strong hand tore down the curtain. A living spring painting unfolded before everyone's eyes. For a heartbeat, the hall went dead silent, then chaos erupted. Song Lianer's face turned as pale as death. She screamed shrilly, frantically clutching at her disheveled robes. Gu Gongjin froze as well, shock written all over his face. To be caught red-handed like that, his life's hard-won reputation was shattered in an instant. I turned to Lu Minghu, he was completely petrified. This play of mine could not go on without him. And, true to form, he clenched his teeth, fists trembling, and charged onto the stage. Moments later, he and Gu Gongjin were locked in a furious brawl, fists flying, neither gaining the upper hand. Song Lianer looked from one man to the other, torn between pulling them apart or covering herself first. Below, the audience gaped wide-eyed, thrilled, as if witnessing the most magnificent scene of their lives. By the next day, the scandal had spread across the entire capital. Have you heard? The Song family's noble daughter was caught consorting with a stage performer. The sight was quite indecent. Utterly disgraceful. They say the young master of the Lu family was so enraged he stormed the stage to fight the performer. But what's his relation to her? I heard they're betrothed. Wait, wasn't his fiancée the younger Song daughter? Song Lianer's name plummeted overnight. Once the image of grace and virtue, she became a scandalous temptress. A woman who seduced her own sister's fiancé. As for Lu Minghu, he still managed to emerge unsullied. Such is the world. Men can always keep their hands clean. My mother fell ill from rage, while my father pointed a trembling finger at Song Lianer, shouting furiously. Disgraceful creature. At my age, to be humiliated by my own child. Yet even then, Song Lianer stubbornly defended Gu Gongjin. Through tears she declared, "It was my foolishness. It has nothing to do with him." Lu Minghu, standing aside, looked stricken, his face shifting through a dozen colors. I sneered inwardly, but outwardly spoke with gentle concern. "Father, how will you deal with the stage performer?" Before my father could reply, Lu Minghu stepped forward, voice cold and trembling with fury. He dared defile Lianer's innocence, in public, no less. Even if he were cut into 100 pieces, it wouldn't be enough. His hands were clenched so tightly that the bones turned stark white. "No!" Song Lianer screamed. Her eyes flared with desperate hatred. "If you kill my Gongjin, then kill me too." My father had spoiled her far too long. Seeing his once precious daughter sink so low, he slammed his teacup onto the ground. The Song family, how could we have raised such a shameless child? He ordered 20 lashes. Song Lianer collapsed to her knees, sobbing hysterically. "No. I'm carrying my Gongjin's child." Lu Minghu's eyes widened, his whole body trembled. Barely 2 months had passed, no physician could confirm it. But Song Lianer insisted she was pregnant. My father exhaled heavily, his tone full of resignation. Misfortune upon this household. Then he changed her punishment from flogging to confinement. I once told Song Lianer, "As long as you use the child in your belly to bargain, our parents will yield, and they'll marry you to Gu Gongjin." But I never said Gu Gongjin would agree. In my past life, I had investigated her supposed death by elopement and fire. But never found her. Only later did I learn. Gu Gongjin had drained her of every coin and favor. Then sold her to a brothel. In the end, unable to bear the shame, Song Lianer threw herself into the river. When I confronted Gu Gongjin, he only shrugged. I've had tens of thousands of patrons. She was just another. If not for her being the Song family's daughter. Do you think I'd have spared her a glance? He'd taken every piece of silver she carried and sold her to a madam like a worthless trinket. Gu Gongjin was greed incarnate. Money was the only thing he ever worshipped. How could a man like that abandon everything for a child not yet formed? 2 months later, when the physician confirmed Song Lianer's pregnancy, the real game would begin. 2 months. More than enough time for me to set everything in motion. The person meant to seek the young healer was never me. It was the imperial princess. From childhood, the princess had been crippled, rarely seen in public. Seemingly indifferent to the world. At least, that was what everyone believed. Until the day she killed the new emperor. None had known that, while they pitied her frailty, she had been secretly gathering the greatest physicians across the realm. All for one purpose. To heal her ruined legs. By chance, one of the imperial princess's attendants came to seek out the young healer, who at that time was still completely unknown. Together, the healer and I set up a small medical stall on the street, treating the common folk for free. The beggars from the ruined temple, her old companions and family, helped us arrange everything. They had wandered through every corner of the capital, knowing exactly where the sick gathered, who needed help the most. They spread out in all directions, crying out that the young healer's clinic could cure any disease. Soon, the crowds thickened day by day, and her name began to spread. Eventually, even the imperial princess heard of her. At a tea house, the princess appeared in plain robes, yet her noble bearing could not be hidden. The faint fragrance of tea curled in the air as she lowered her eyes toward me and said calmly, "I wish to borrow your healer. The reward will be sent to the Tsong residence." I knelt before her, bowing low. "Thank you, Your Highness." As I rose, I swayed deliberately, stumbling into her arms. She caught me by instinct. And in that instant, I slipped a folded note into her hand, smiling faintly, my tone soft and loyal. "I am willing to serve Your Highness with all my heart, until death." The princess narrowed her eyes, regarding me intently. "You exaggerate, young lady," she said quietly. The road to power for the imperial princess had never been smooth. In my previous life, she struggled endlessly against the second prince. Their forces evenly matched. She never realized that the bodyguard she trusted most was a spy planted by him. In that battle, she suffered devastating losses. But in this life, with my warning, she would trace the threads of betrayal and root out the traitor. From that day forward, lavish gifts and favors from the princess began flowing into the Tsong household. My father and mother were overjoyed, though I could see the shadow of unease behind their smiles. Father forced a laugh. As expected of a daughter of the Tsong family, already earning the princess's favor. Mother, however, sat silent beside him, her expression heavy. That night, she came to my room, holding a plate of peach cakes, my childhood favorite. She smiled softly, her voice tender. "You've been so busy lately. You've lost weight." She pushed the plate toward me. "Eat, my dear. You've always loved these." I did love peach cakes once. But Song Lianer, ever the paragon of virtue, used to scold me for being selfish. She would lecture me loftily. "Born to wealth, yet you indulge in luxury while others starve. How heartless." She forgot, of course, that she once killed 8 horses just to eat a single fresh lychee. My mother always praised Song Lianer's compassion. And scolded me for lacking the grace of a true Tsong lady. After that, I never touched peach cakes again. So she remembered, after all. I didn't dance around the matter. "Mother, has a physician been summoned for my elder sister?" Her smile froze. She nodded stiffly. Yes. It's true, she's 2 months pregnant. What do you and father intend to do? Mother sighed, weariness filling her tone. She refuses to give up the child, and your father? Forget it. Best not speak of it. Of course, I had my people watching closely. In the end, out of fatherly affection, my father caved. He went personally to Gu Gongjin, seeking to negotiate marriage. But Gu Gongjin only smiled faintly, his voice cold. Not marrying. Father exploded in fury, shouting that without Song Lianer, Gu Gongjin would still be a nameless performer. But Gu Gongjin couldn't care less. He had already secured the backing of the second prince. Under royal protection, he no longer feared the Song family. Father returned home defeated and livid. By then, Song Lianer's reputation had utterly collapsed. If anyone married her now, they'd become the laughingstock of the entire capital. Yet she was with child, her belly growing by the day, someone had to take responsibility. So naturally, all eyes turned to Lu Minghu, my betrothed. My parents were not blind, they knew he loved Song Lianer. That snowy night when he draped his cloak over my shoulders was also the night he went to meet her. But they had once refused to let Song Lianer marry into the Lu family, thinking it beneath her. And that was how the engagement fell upon me instead. Now, they wanted to take it back. Mother clutched at her sleeve, her eyes flickering toward me as she spoke hesitantly. Wangshu, you've always been more understanding than your sister. So she was the one sent to persuade me to yield the marriage. You two grew up together, she continued softly, it's only right to help one another. Lianer has caused such a scandal, no decent family would come to propose now. But Minghu is different, he has known your sister since childhood, he understands her well, and that puts my heart at ease. Why don't you return the engagement to your sister? Your father and I will find you a better match later. I curved my lips faintly and answered, voice even. As you wish, mother. I will do whatever pleases you. This engagement. I had long wished to be rid of it. I handed Gu Gongjin a silk pouch brimming with silver and jewels. He smiled in delight, leaning lazily against my shoulder, his voice sweet and sultry. Wangshu treats me so well. I hardly know how to repay you, unless, with myself. I cut him off. I have no interest in you. He chuckled lowly, eyes glinting like a fox. Then what does Wangshu want? Convinced Song Lianer to marry Lu Minghu, I said evenly. That way, you'll be free of one nuisance yourself. His long, narrow eyes gleamed like crescents as he laughed. As you command. When Song Lianer learned Gu Gongjin had refused to marry her, she could not accept it. Ignoring our parents' fury, she sneaked out to meet him. Whatever tricks he used, in the end she agreed to marry Lu Minghu. Tossed about like a toy, Lu Minghu's face turned black as ink. Yet faced with Song Lianer's tear-streaked face, pear blossoms in the rain, he relented once more. He had his beauty, and soon a child to his name. Yet somehow, he could not bring himself to be happy. Whispers buzzed through the capital. Have you heard? Young Master Lu has peculiar tastes. The night before his wedding, he came to my courtyard, drunk and staggering. Wangshu, he murmured, I'm getting married tomorrow. He reached out as if to hold me. I stepped back and smiled faintly. Congratulations, young Master Lu. I wish you joy. He looked at me as though I'd stabbed him, eyes full of wounded sorrow. As if he were the one betrayed. Wangshu, he whispered hoarsely, you know I only ever wanted to marry you. In my past life, such words would have melted me. I might have given him my heart right there. But now, all I felt was disgust. Lu Minghu always wanted both sides. To keep the love of his pure sweetheart while enjoying the devotion of the other woman he'd discarded. He was about to become my brother-in-law. It was time to draw a line. He glared at me, searching for some trace of emotion on my face. But all he found was revulsion. His eyes reddened, his voice trembled. It shouldn't be like this. You clearly love me. You've had too much to drink, young Master Lu. Please go home. He gripped my sleeve tightly, murmuring. I wronged you. I deserve whatever you do to me. Even now, he still thought I pushed him away out of heartbreak. Never realizing I had long since seen through the rot beneath his skin. The wedding came swiftly and without grandeur. There was no gilded bridal carriage, no lavish procession like the one Song Lianer had dreamed of. Everything was stripped down to the bare minimum. Crowds filled the streets, eager to witness the farce. Everyone wanted to see Lu Minghu's humiliation. Xin Yu, the son of General Xin and Lu Minghu's longtime rival, smirked and drawled. Brother Lu is truly blessed, married today, a father tomorrow. Laughter erupted across the hall. Lu Minghu's face darkened, but as the groom, he could only grit his teeth and swallow the shame. Perhaps everyone else was amused that day. Except the two people getting married. Not long after, I received a letter from the imperial princess. What is it you desire? The note I'd slipped her hand that day had borne fruit. She had exposed the second prince's spy and now sought to reward her ally. What did I want? I wanted every last person who had betrayed me to suffer a ruin beyond redemption. The imperial princess soon seized control of Beiyang, crushed the Xiongnu, and stood at the height of glory. The empire sang of her as a heroine among women, lamenting only that fate had crippled her legs. But then, before the eyes of all, she stood. The head eunuch of the Astronomical Bureau fell to his knees, shouting. The phoenix has descended. Heaven blesses great Qi. From that day on, her name resounded across the land. People believed her destiny alone could bring a century of prosperity. I swirled the teacup in my hand, listening to the storyteller on the stage extol her triumphs with theatrical zeal. The future empress had begun her rise. In my past life, following my advice, Lu Minghu had sided with her. But in this life, without my interference, he had chosen the second prince. The one who appeared more likely to win. Becoming the lapdog of his rival, how fittingly poetic. The man Song Lianer loved so dearly was merely a charming stage performer. Lu Minghu, of course, could not stomach that humiliation. He'd used his position as the Lu family's heir to make trouble for Gu Gongjin again and again. But who could have guessed? Gu Gongjin was now the second prince's favored pet. And Gu Gongjin, from the start, was never one to swallow his pride. What he had endured would be repaid to Lu Minghu bit by bit. So the two of them tore into one another without restraint. Song Lianer, of course, always stood by Gu Gongjin's side. Though only 5 months with child, her belly was already like a small mountain. Her body had been leached dry, so thin that her cheekbones jutted, dark hollows rimmed her eyes, her skin as paper pale. The fragile beauty she once wore had vanished entirely. The child inside was feeding off her very life, growing at a grotesque, unnatural speed. The physician came each day, finding strange signs, and advised her to terminate the pregnancy. But Song Lianer flew into a rage, shrieking that the physician was evil, and ordered him beaten to death. After that, no one in the Lu household dared speak out again. Every day she cradled her belly with a saintly expression, murmuring without end, my Gongjin, this is our child. My child, you will be the happiest child in the world. Yet her husband was not Gu Gongjin. Lu Minghu, forced into marriage with her, had to endure his wife carrying another man's child and whispering that man's name day after day. How much longer could he stand it? Things slid beyond saving as Gu Gongjin continued to humiliate Lu Minghu. He was driven nearly mad, and at last had a bitter quarrel with Song Lianer. The marriage had always been an unwilling union, no one was satisfied. Song Lianer refused to yield, with every word she compared Lu Minghu unfavorably to Gu Gongjin. Finally she spat the fatal insult, you're not even worth a single finger of my Gongjin. Lu Minghu flew into a red-faced rage and shoved her with such force that the child inside nearly bled out. Under the pretense of being the younger sister, I came to visit her in the Lu mansion. She lay on the bed, weeping as if her heart were being ripped asunder. No trace remained of the weak, pitiable girl. She looked like a vengeful spirit demanding blood. Lu Minghu had already lost patience. He turned and left early. The fetus devoured the mother's vitality so completely that Song Lianer's mind frayed. She clutched her belly and muttered like a madwoman, "My child, don't be afraid, he wants to kill you, he wants to kill our child." I took her thin, bony hand and soothed her gently. "Sister, don't worry. Fortunately, the child is still holding on." When she calmed, I leaned in and spoke softly into her ear. "Do you know? He doesn't only want to kill the child. He plans to kill the child's father as well." Her eyes widened in terror. I poured salt into the wound and whispered further, "Gu Gongjin has shamed him many times. He has long harbored hatred and is now plotting to eliminate Gu Gongjin." Living day by day beside Lu Minghu, Song Lianer had learned his true character. She could see how plausible my words were. Besides, this was not the first time Lu Minghu had wanted Gu Gongjin dead. When he first learned of Song Lianer's liaison, he once urged her father to execute Gu Gongjin by slow slicing. Song Lianer trembled with fear. I smiled and, with a tenderness like a breeze, brushed the sweat-soaked hair from her forehead and said, "I can help you. If we kill Lu Minghu, you and Gu Gongjin will be together forever." She hesitated, then her eyes hardened with resolve. "Yes. If we kill him, that will be enough." That night Song Lianer set the fire, intending to die together with Lu Minghu. TSK. Was that her only plan? Flames roared, the Lu mansion descended into chaos, everyone scrambled to douse the blaze. Seizing the moment of lax guard, my inside man slipped into Lu Minghu's study and took every secret dispatch that recorded his dealings with corrupt officials. The flames climbed, black smoke thickened. Burn it all. Burn everything, more. Song Lianer died within the sea of fire. They said she could have escaped, but Lu Minghu shoved her back into the inferno. The man who had loved her through 2 lifetimes had, in the end, finished her with his own hands. How utterly cold. He never even got to see the child's face. Lu Minghu survived, but his features were burned beyond recognition. Up close, you could see flesh ravaged so badly bone and teeth showed through, a sight more terrifying than any demon. I handed all the evidence over to the imperial princess. Her eyes gleamed with approval. "You've done a great service for me." Lu Minghu escaped death, but scarcely had he recovered when the princess's faction submitted memorials charging him. With the proof laid bare, he could not deny it. Officials who'd been entangled with him were implicated too, and the second prince's faction suffered a heavy blow. The night before his beheading, I went to the prison to see him. By chance, Gu Gongjin was there as well. Having driven his oppressor into the mire, he of course came to gloat. He raised a brow at me and laughed languidly. "Ah, our great achiever has come." He waved a hand and winked, teasing, "Very well, I know how to read a man's mood. I won't keep you two from your pleasant reunion." He glanced at me with that lazy charm and purred, "I intend to join the princess's faction. Perhaps you might put in a good word." A man like him went wherever the wind blew. Seeing the second prince's power wane, he scrambled to save his own skin. I smiled and answered blandly, "The princess's household always has room." The damp darkness of the prison closed around us. Only Lu Minghu and I remained. He looked at me, eyes filled with water, and spoke weakly, "Wanshu, are you still angry with me? You know it was Song Lianer who forced me, so I had to marry her. Could you beg the princess to spare me? Save me this once." Candlelight flickered across his blistered face, turning him into a devil crawling up from hell. I regarded him calmly and answered coldly, "Lu Minghu, enough pretending." The moment he shoved Song Lianer into the flames, I understood, he had been reborn too. He froze, then quickly covered his expression. "Wangshu, what are you saying?" he asked, feigning ignorance. I laughed softly. Stop the performance. He bowed his head and, voice thick, pleaded, why do you treat me this way? Don't you know, I suffered so after you died. Hatred blinded me. Only when I lost her did I realize. I loved her deeply. I investigated the fire afterwards, it wasn't her. I blamed her wrongly. Forgive me. Wang Shu. His voice dwindled to almost nothing. Again he tried to shift all blame onto Tsang Liener, as if her death could atone for his sins in a previous life. My eyelid twitched. I smiled coldly. Lu Minghu, whether in our last life or this one, the one I hate above all others is you. Strip away that sanctimonious mask of yours, it only makes people sick. His eyes went bloodshot, and he seemed about to say more. But I no longer wished to hear it. Lu Minghu, along with all the torment he'd caused me in the past life, vanish. As expected, the princess ascended the throne. I became one of her pillars, appointed Grand Tutor, the very post that had belonged to Lu Minghu in my past life. She once asked, do you wish me to reward your clan? She knew I was distant from my parents. I only smiled, shook my head, and placed before her the proof of my father's embezzlement and bribery from the previous year. A minister must distinguish public from private. The empress smiled and waved her hand. As you wish. My father was stripped of rank and sent to govern a remote prefecture as its magistrate. Escorted away, he cursed and railed, but in the end bowed to the decree. My mother said nothing. Only, each year I would receive a letter from her. I tossed those envelopes casually into the fire without opening them. What's lost cannot be mended. Better to burn it away clean. The dark past could not be restored. But the future, surely it would blaze bright. The end.